The slammed door echoed like a thunderclap, shaking the quiet house where Emma had spent years building dreams with Michael. Emma whispered, "What did you just say?" But Michael's face was already cold, his eyes avoiding hers as if she were a stranger. Michael said, "I'm done. I want a divorce," his words slicing through the air like glass. Emma's knees weakened as she clutched the edge of the kitchen counter, staring at the empty space where his warmth once lived. Their daughter Lily peeked around the corner, confusion shadowing her innocent eyes, but Emma forced a trembling smile, shielding her child from the storm. The house felt alien, walls once alive with laughter now pressing in with silence. Emma's heart raced as memories flashed, wedding vows, Lily's first steps, late-night confessions, now poisoned by the sudden betrayal. She whispered to herself, "How can forever end in a breath?" Michael turned away, shoulders tense, gripping his suitcase as if freedom weighed heavier than family. In that instant, Emma's world collapsed into shards, and every step he took toward the door stole a piece of her soul. The silence after Michael's words clung to Emma like a suffocating blanket. She tried to steady her breath, but every inhale felt shallow, every exhale laced with panic. Emma said, "How could he leave after all we built?" But her voice cracked like brittle glass. Lily walked closer, small footsteps echoing in the hollow room, and asked, "Mommy, is Daddy mad?" Emma forced herself to kneel and pull Lily close, whispering, "No, sweetheart, Daddy just needs time." But inside she knew time was a wound, not a cure. She remembered birthdays, anniversaries, quiet nights, where Michael had once looked at her with devotion. Now that gaze was gone, replaced with an emptiness she couldn't comprehend. The house felt like an unfamiliar stage, and she, the actress, abandoned mid-performance. Her heart thundered, and she whispered to herself, "I never thought I'd have to live without him." Emma sat on the couch, Lily curled into her lap, clutching her stuffed toy. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the ticking clock on the wall. Emma whispered, "It wasn't supposed to be like this." Her eyes scanned the photographs on the wall, wedding smiles, family vacations, Lily's drawings, now haunting relics of promises shattered. Michael's absence felt heavier than his presence ever had. She thought of the vows they made, how he once said, "Forever, Emma," and wondered how forever had turned into tonight's goodbye. She pressed her lips against Lily's hair, fighting to keep her tears silent. The house was no longer a home, but a cage of memories. The air outside the door seeped in as Michael left, bringing with it a chill that cut through Emma's skin. She rose slowly, carrying Lily to her bedroom, whispering, "You're safe with me." Lily clung to her, eyes heavy but filled with fear. Emma tucked her under soft blankets, brushing hair gently, remembering nights when both parents kissed Lily goodnight together. Now, she stood alone at the bedside, her shadow long on the wall. Lily asked faintly, "Will Daddy come back?" Emma whispered, "Rest now, my love," but inside she feared the answer she couldn't speak. Emma stood alone in the hallway, staring at the closed door that had swallowed Michael into the night. The silence vibrated with finality. She whispered to herself, "This is where forever ends." Her hand grazed the wall, trailing past the photographs of their smiling faces, now mocking echoes of a broken dream. The house no longer breathed with warmth, but with emptiness. The floor creaked under her bare feet as she walked back into the living room, every step feeling heavier than the last. She sat on the couch, staring at the door, knowing she would never look at it the same way again. Morning light crept weakly through the blinds, casting pale lines across Emma's face as she sat at the edge of her bed. The night had stolen her sleep, leaving only echoes of Michael's words repeating like a cruel mantra. Emma whispered, "I gave him everything," her voice breaking under the weight of her truth. She thought of the career she set aside, the friendships neglected, the dreams folded neatly into the drawer of sacrifice. She had poured her soul into the marriage, certain that love was enough. Now the silence mocked her loyalty. She pressed her hands against her chest, trying to still the ache, remembering how Michael once promised to shield her from the world. Instead, he became the storm. Lily stirred in the next room, her soft hum piercing Emma's despair, forcing her to breathe. Emma told herself, "You cannot fall apart, not yet." The reflection in the mirror showed a woman she barely recognized, fragile but still standing. Emma walked into the kitchen, her bare feet cold against the tiled floor. The smell of stale coffee lingered from yesterday, but she made a fresh pot anyway, clinging to routine like a lifeline. She whispered, "I have to keep moving," though every step felt hollow. Lily padded in, carrying her stuffed bear, eyes still heavy with sleep. Lily asked Mommy, "Will Daddy come back for breakfast?" Emma knelt and kissed her forehead, replying softly, "Not today, my love." Her heart cracked as she forced calm into her voice. She poured coffee into a chipped mug, hands trembling as steam rose in faint curls. The kitchen felt too big, too empty, every corner echoing Michael's absence. Emma whispered to herself, "This house was built for us, not for me alone." Yet she poured Lily's cereal, adjusted her chair, and tried to believe in survival one morning at a time. Later that day, Emma sat in the living room, staring at the wedding album spread across the coffee table. Each page felt like a cruel joke, smiles frozen in time, while reality crumbled. She touched Michael's face in a photo, whispering, "You were my forever." The words tasted bitter. Lily sat nearby, coloring with crayons, her innocence untouched by the poison that seeped through Emma's veins. Emma thought of how she believed loyalty could shield her from heartbreak, how she trusted promises that now seemed like lies. She said quietly, "I was blind, and I thought love made me strong." The photographs seemed to laugh at her, every vow nothing more than faded ink. Yet as she glanced at Lily, she saw a reason to keep breathing, a reason to stand again. Her hands trembled as she closed the album, pushing it aside like ashes of a fire long gone cold. Emma walked into the bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror above the sink. The woman who looked back was not the one Michael once adored. Her eyes were tired, her shoulders slumped under invisible weight. She whispered, "Who am I without him?" Her hand traced the lines of her face, searching for the girl who once dreamed of the world beyond love. She remembered college days, ambitions abandoned, the laughter she traded for stability. Michael had promised partnership, but Emma had given everything and lost herself in the process. She closed her eyes, tears threatening again, but then Lily's voice echoed down the hall, calling, "Mommy." Emma inhaled deeply, steadying her hands on the sink. She whispered, "I'm still here," and for the first time the words carried a fragile strength. That evening, Emma sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket as the sun sank low. The sky burned with orange and pink, yet inside she felt only gray. She whispered, "I gave up myself for love, and now I am alone." She remembered declining job offers, ignoring her own desires, all for Michael's vision of family. Now that vision had shattered, leaving her stranded in its ruins. Lily climbed onto her lap, resting her head against Emma's chest. Emma kissed her hair and said softly, "I'll protect you no matter what." The promise steadied her trembling heart. For the first time, she realized her identity could no longer rest in being Michael's wife. She whispered to herself, "I have to find who Emma is again." The night gathered around her, but a fragile spark of resilience flickered quietly inside her chest. Emma sat across from Michael in the dimly lit cafe, her hands folded tightly on the table to stop them from shaking. Michael avoided her eyes, stirring his coffee as if the silence belonged to him. Emma whispered, "Why did you lie about the money?" Her voice was calm, but beneath it was fire. Michael sighed and said, "You wouldn't understand. I needed freedom." The words sliced her deeper than a blade. She remembered nights spent budgeting, sacrificing her own needs to keep their home stable, only to realize he had hidden debts. She leaned closer, anger trembling in her chest, and said, "Freedom shouldn't come at the cost of family." Michael smirked faintly, a defense born of guilt, and Emma saw the stranger he had become. Around them, the cafe hummed with ordinary life, yet their table felt like a battlefield where trust had already burned to ash. That night, Emma sat on the couch with her best friend Sarah, who held her hand firmly. Emma's tears flowed freely as she said, "He's been lying about money, About everything. Sarah, eyes blazing with loyalty, replied, "You can't let him break you. He isn't worth your soul." Emma wiped her eyes, shaking her head. "I believed in him more than I believed in myself." Sarah leaned closer, her tone sharp but protective. "Stop carrying his sins on your back. He chose this, not you." Emma felt the truth sting, but also settle like an anchor in her chest. She realized she was clinging to illusions while the foundation beneath her had already cracked wide open. For the first time she allowed herself to whisper, "Maybe I deserve better." Sarah squeezed her hand tighter, her presence a shield in Emma's unraveling storm. The following morning, Emma walked Lily to school, her daughter's small hand clutching hers tightly. Lily asked softly, "Mommy, why don't you and Daddy smile anymore?" The question pierced Emma's chest, but she managed a gentle smile and said, "Sometimes grown-ups forget how." Lily's innocence reflected the ache Emma carried, a mirror to everything broken. As they reached the gates, Lily hugged her tightly, whispering, "I love you more than the moon." Emma closed her eyes, holding on to that love as her shield. Watching her daughter walk inside, she whispered to herself, "I have to be strong for her, even if I break inside." The schoolyard echoed with laughter, a cruel reminder of the joy she once thought permanent. Her footsteps back home felt heavier with every step, each one an echo of loss and responsibility colliding inside her soul. Emma's parents visited that weekend, their presence filling the house with judgment more than comfort. Her father, stern and unyielding, said, "Marriage is hard, but divorce is shameful." Emma's mother sat silently, her eyes filled with a mix of pity and restraint. Emma clenched her fists, forcing her voice steady. "You don't know what he's done," she said. Her father's expression hardened further. "A wife should endure." Emma's anger surged, years of sacrifice igniting in her chest. She whispered fiercely, "Endurance is not survival. He betrayed me." The silence that followed was louder than any argument. Her mother finally reached for her hand, whispering, "You deserve peace, not chains." For the first time, Emma felt the generational weight pressing on her shoulders and realized she had to break it, no matter how much it hurt to stand alone. That night, Emma sat alone at the dining table, unpaid bills spread before her like scars of betrayal. She whispered, "He left debts, not just memories." The weight of responsibility pressed heavy as she realized Michael had drained accounts she once trusted him to protect. She thought of Lily's future, of the home now at risk. Rage boiled beneath her grief, but fear clawed at her throat. She said aloud, "He didn't just leave me, he abandoned everything." Tears blurred the ink on the papers, but beneath them flickered a spark. She would not let him destroy her completely. She clenched her jaw, whispering, "I will rebuild, even if it kills me." The night stretched endlessly, but Emma's resolve grew sharper than her pain, each breath carving the woman she was becoming from the ashes of the one she once was. Emma sat at Sarah's kitchen table, her friend's laptop open between them. Sarah clicked through public records, her jaw tightening with each page. She turned the screen toward Emma and whispered, "You need to see this." Emma leaned closer, her heart pounding as she read the name of another woman linked to Michael's accounts. Her breath caught. "He has someone else," she whispered, the words tasting of blood. Sarah nodded grimly. "It's been going on for years." Emma's mind spun with memories, unexplained late nights, business trips, phone calls that ended too quickly. She clenched her fists. "All this time I thought I wasn't enough," she said, her voice trembling with rage. Sarah's hand touched hers firmly. "You were more than enough. He was never worthy of you." The betrayal cut deeper than she imagined. Not just abandonment, but a hidden life threaded through the marriage she once believed sacred. Emma walked into Michael's office the next day, papers clutched tightly in her hand. He looked up from his desk, startled, as she slammed them down. "How long were you planning to keep lying?" she demanded, her voice shaking with fury. Michael leaned back, face pale, before trying to mask his fear with arrogance. "You don't understand, Emma," he muttered. She leaned forward, her eyes burning. "I understand enough. You had a second life, didn't you?" He swallowed hard, unable to meet her gaze. Silence was the answer she dreaded yet expected. Emma whispered bitterly, "I gave up everything for us, and you gave it to her." His lips parted as if to defend himself, but the words never came. The truth had already condemned him. Emma turned toward the door, leaving him frozen in the rubble of his deceit. That evening, Emma sat in her car outside the rival's house, hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles whitened. Through the window she saw a woman laughing on the porch with Michael, their bodies close, familiar. Tears burned Emma's eyes as rage and sorrow collided in her chest. She whispered to herself, "He built a whole life with her while I carried his dreams." Her heart pounded like a drum as she imagined confronting them both. But instead she stayed frozen, watching the illusion of family that had stolen her own. The porch light flickered on, casting them in a golden glow, like a painting of betrayal. Emma turned the key in the ignition, her resolve tightening. "I won't let them define me," she whispered into the darkness. For the first time, the pain sharpened into something powerful, the beginning of defiance. Emma stormed back into Sarah's home, slamming the door as her chest heaved with fury. Sarah rushed to her side asking, "What happened?" Emma's voice cracked as she said, "I saw them. He didn't just cheat, he built a life with her." Sarah pulled her into a tight embrace, whispering, "Then let that be the end of his power over you." Emma shook her head, tears falling. "All this time I thought I wasn't enough. But it wasn't me. It was him." The truth burned and soothed at once. She collapsed onto Sarah's couch, staring at the ceiling. For years she had lived as if Michael's love was oxygen, but now she felt something stir inside her, a flame that whispered survival. Sarah squeezed her hand. "You're stronger than this storm," she said firmly. And for the first time, Emma almost believed it. Days later, Emma stood before the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection with new clarity. Her eyes were swollen, but behind them was steel. She whispered, "He broke me, but he also freed me." She remembered Sarah's words, her mother's quiet support, Lily's innocent love, threads weaving into armor. She thought of Michael and the other woman, but instead of crumbling, she felt something rise. Emma placed her hand on her chest, whispering, "This is where I begin again." The betrayal had stripped her bare, yet in the ruins she found herself. She no longer saw a victim in the mirror, but a woman forged in fire. Her lips curved faintly into the first fragile smile since everything shattered. The storm was not over, but for the first time she felt ready to face it. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as Emma sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. Michael sat across from her, confident yet pale under the harsh fluorescent lights. The judge's gavel struck, silencing the room. But Emma's heart thundered louder than any sound. She whispered to herself, "This is where I reclaim my voice." Michael's lawyer spoke first, words sharp and rehearsed, painting him as the victim of circumstance. Emma felt her chest tighten, but when her turn came, she stood tall. Her voice trembled at first, but steadied as she said, "I gave everything to this marriage, and he gave nothing but betrayal." Gasps filled the air as documents revealed his debts, his secrets, his double life. Michael's face flushed, the mask cracking in front of everyone. For the first time, Emma wasn't the one trembling. He was. As the trial continued, Emma's lawyer presented evidence of hidden accounts and forged documents. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his charm stripped away by cold facts. Emma whispered, "The truth will bury his lies." She looked at the jury, her eyes wet but unyielding. Michael finally spoke, his voice defensive. "I just wanted freedom." The courtroom fell into silence before Emma answered firmly, "You traded family for selfishness, and you left your daughter to pay the price." The words struck harder than any accusation, and Michael's shoulders sagged under their weight. The judge glanced at him with quiet disdain, and Emma felt power return to her chest. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about survival. Every sentence spoken in truth rebuilt the pieces Michael had tried to break. For the first time, Emma felt herself rising, unshakable, forged by fire. Outside the courthouse during recess, Emma stepped onto the stone steps, the autumn wind whipping her hair across her face. Reporters shouted questions, flashes from cameras sparking like lightning. Sarah rushed to her side, shielding her from the chaos. Emma whispered, "He can't control the story anymore." Sarah squeezed her arm and replied, "You're stronger than his lies." Emma looked at the crowd, and for a moment felt exposed, her wounds displayed for strangers to dissect. But instead of shrinking, she straightened her back. She turned her face toward the flashing lights and whispered, "Let them see me. Let them see the truth." The weight of years lifted slightly as she realized the shame was no longer hers to carry. For the first time since Michael walked out, she felt unafraid of being seen. That night, Emma returned home, the silence heavy but no longer suffocating. She poured herself a glass of water and sat at the dining table where bills once haunted her. The shadows seemed softer now, as if the house acknowledged her courage. Lily walked into the room, sleepy-eyed, clutching her stuffed bear. "Mommy, did you win?" she asked. Emma pulled her close and whispered, "We're still fighting, but we're stronger now." Lily hugged her tightly, her small arms anchoring Emma's heart. In that embrace, Emma felt what Michael had never given her, purpose that went beyond betrayal. She whispered, "He cannot take this from us." The night wrapped around them, no longer as an enemy, but as witness to Emma's vow. She would not collapse again. This was her fight, her storm, and she would rise above it. Days later, the trial reached its climax. Emma stood again before the court, her heart pounding, but her voice clear. "He tried to erase me, but I am still here," she declared. Michael shifted, his mask completely shattered, the man she once loved now exposed as fragile and hollow. The judge's gavel struck again, echoing like thunder. The verdict had yet to come, but Emma already felt victorious. Not because she had destroyed him, but because she had reclaimed herself. She whispered, "This is the end of his control, and the beginning of my life." The courtroom blurred around her, but her vision sharpened inward. For the first time in years, she wasn't defined by Michael's shadow. She was Emma, whole, scarred, but unbroken. And the silence that followed belonged to her, not to him. The first morning after the trial ended, Emma woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. For the first time in months, the light felt like an invitation instead of a burden. She whispered, "I survived." The words lingered on her lips like a fragile prayer. She dressed slowly, choosing not the muted clothes she wore during the court battles, but a soft blue blouse that once made her feel alive. Lily bounded into the room, laughing, "Mommy, pancakes?" Emma smiled, genuine and unforced. "Yes, pancakes," she said, pulling her daughter into an embrace. The world outside was still uncertain, the future unknown, but in that moment she felt the dignity of choice return. Her scars were still raw, but they were hers. She whispered, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." Emma and Lily stood in the kitchen, mixing pancake batter as flour dusted their hands. The laughter felt strange at first, like a forgotten language slowly remembered. Emma whispered, "We're still a family, you and me." Lily grinned and said, "We're strong girls." Emma kissed her daughter's forehead, tears pricking her eyes. But these were not tears of despair. They were the kind that honored survival. For years she had carried Michael's shadow like an anchor, but now she was learning to breathe without it. The clinking of spoons, the sizzling of batter on the skillet, filled the house with new music. Emma whispered softly, "This is our new life, and it's enough." Later that week, Emma walked alone through the park, autumn leaves crunching beneath her shoes. She inhaled deeply, the crisp air clearing the weight that once clung to her chest. She whispered, "I can breathe again." Passing families and couples no longer stung her heart. Instead, she felt a quiet dignity in walking by herself. On a bench near the lake, she sat watching ripples stretch endlessly across the water. She remembered how Michael's betrayal had crushed her, but now she realized strength was not born from him leaving. It was born from her staying. Her phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "Proud of you." Emma smiled, whispering, I'm proud of me too. The wind rustled the trees, carrying her words away like seeds of something new. One evening, Sarah invited Emma out for coffee. The cafe glowed with warm lights as the two friends sat by the window. Sarah leaned across the table and said, "You've changed, Em. You're stronger now." Emma smiled softly, stirring her cup. "I thought I would break, but I didn't." Sarah's laughter broke through the quiet, filling Emma with gratitude. A man at the counter glanced their way, his smile kind, not intrusive. Emma noticed, then looked back at Sarah with a knowing shake of her head. "Not yet," she whispered, though the spark of possibility flickered. Sarah nodded, her eyes proud. For Emma, it wasn't about finding someone new, it was about finding herself. She felt the truth settle in her chest. Love could return one day, but healing was already here. Back at home, Emma tucked Lily into bed, brushing hair gently from her face. Lily whispered, "Mommy, you're happy now." Emma kissed her forehead and replied, "Yes, sweetheart, I am." She turned off the lamp and stood in the doorway, watching her daughter drift into dreams. For years, Emma's nights had ended in tears, but now they ended in quiet strength. She walked to the living room, sat on the couch, and wrapped herself in a blanket. The silence was still there, but it no longer frightened her. She whispered to herself, "I am enough." The house, once a prison of betrayal, now felt like a sanctuary of resilience. The storm had passed, and though the scars remained, Emma felt at peace. Emma walked into the empty house after dropping Lily at school. The silence met her like an old companion, but now it didn't feel suffocating. She set her keys on the counter, glanced at the wedding photo still hanging on the wall, and felt her chest tighten. For months, she avoided touching it, as if acknowledgement would shatter her fragile calm. This time she stepped closer, running her fingers over the glass. She whispered, "We were never forever." She pulled the frame off the wall, the nail clinking against the hardwood floor. The sound was sharp but freeing, echoing through the stillness. Emma carried the photo to the trash, her movements deliberate, steady. She let the frame slip from her hand, glass breaking inside the bin. She whispered, "You don't own me anymore." And with that, the last chain loosened. Emma sat on the porch that evening with Sarah, sipping tea while the sky blazed orange with sunset. Sarah said, "You look lighter, Em." Emma exhaled slowly, staring at the horizon. "I buried so much of myself in him. But now I see, he never deserved it." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes proud. "You're free now." Emma's lips curved into a soft smile, the first that carried no pain behind it. "I thought freedom was his to take," she whispered, "but it was mine all along." The air was cool, the kind that hinted at new seasons, and Emma realized she was ready to step into hers. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time, tomorrow didn't frighten her. It felt like possibility. At the park the next day, Emma pushed Lily on the swings, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves. Lily shouted, "Higher, Mommy," and Emma pushed gently, smiling. A man walking his dog passed by, nodding with a kind smile. Emma returned it, but her heart didn't flutter with fear or longing. It simply felt open. She whispered under her breath, "I am whole without him." Lily jumped off the swing, running to hug her legs. "You're the best, Mommy," she said proudly. Emma bent down, pulling her daughter close. "You make me strong," she replied. The world looked different now, not through the lens of betrayal, but through resilience. That night, Emma sat at the dining table, the empty ring box lying open before her. She picked up the wedding band, its metal cold against her skin. For years, it had symbolized love, loyalty, and permanence, but now it was nothing more than an artifact of lies. She whispered, "This doesn't define me." She closed the box firmly, the hollow sound reverberating in the quiet house. The gesture wasn't about hate or revenge, it was about release. Emma set the box on a shelf, no longer hidden away, but placed as a reminder of what she overcame. She leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply. "She thought she destroyed me," she said aloud, "but all she did was set me free." The silence afterward felt holy, like the closing of a sacred chapter. On the final morning, Emma stood in front of the mirror one last time. Her reflection no longer looked like a stranger. Her eyes carried scars, but also strength. She whispered, "I am Emma. Not his wife, not his victim. Just me." She slipped on her jacket, ready to step outside into a world that once terrified her. The door creaked as she opened it, sunlight spilling into the house, bathing her in warmth. She whispered, "This is my life now," and stepped forward. The house behind her no longer felt like a prison, but a foundation she had rebuilt herself. As the door shut, the echo didn't sting. It sounded like freedom,